Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wounds to Wonder. I'm Ifra, and today I'm being joined by Julianne Trotman, and we're just very excited to start this conversation. Hi, Julianne.
Hi, Ifra. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really looking forward to having a great conversation today.
That's awesome. So, one of the reasons we wanted to start this podcast was essentially uh, walk through as well as walk women through pain points to power. And when we got talking, when the team was like designing this podcast, we got to talking. Not a lot of people talk about invisible violence, and one of the forms is financial abuse. So I just wanted to start off with you've had an extensive career across multiple sectors. If you could just share with us what you feel financial really abuse is.
Sure. So for me, financial abuse is a way for a partner to hold or try to maintain power and control over someone else. So, being able to be the person or being the person who has all of the power because you've got all of the access to the financial ability, so the money, etc., and then depriving the other person of being able to have access to that.
Yeah. A lot of times, like, we don't really think about this that deeply because at the end of the day, it comes down to people mentioning that it's about accountability, right? So, from that perspective, also, what do you think, like, financial autonomy means to you?
Wow. Oh, so to me, I think I've always, from a kid, I've always been what I would classify as a fiscally responsible individual. Always recognizing, I guess being instilled in me, the concept that, having your own money or being able to afford to do your own thing based on the fact that you have your own finances in your own bank account is such an important thing. And it's second nature to myself, but not necessarily to everyone in every culture and in every circumstance.
Right. Also, there's so much shame with money, right?
Yeah.
Like when we think about women as well, like we don't talk about money.
Yes.
When we go to the girls' bathroom, when we meet women, also like in different circles, we don't really talk about money because it's embarrassing.
Yes.
Why do you think that is?
I think a little bit of a history. Back in the day, the men were the hunters gatherers, and they were the one who made the money, and they were the head of the household. I'll put that in inverted commas. And women, we really didn't have any access to, and that was not really something that was looked upon as our responsibility or something that we even did. So I think from that perspective, it's grown up that, really for us to have those conversations where we're talking about money, it almost seems like a little bit vulgar or like a dirty word in some circles, right? Because it feels like we're sort of trying to be our own boss, which back in the day wasn't really the place that we took when it came to money in the household.
That's true. Like it hasn't been that long that we have access to credit cards and actually the ability to have bank accounts, right? Like across the world in different stages, we've really gotten here. But
Yes.
Even though that people are having these conversations about money, but it's not really out there, particularly for women, because traditional gender roles, say that, like you mentioned, there's a breadwinner who's traditionally a male, but then how does that really protect the woman?
Well, I mean, if it is an equal relationship and it's a relationship that's a healthy relationship, then the protection there is based on trust. So your husband or your partner is the person who is managing the money in the household, but it's treated as equal among both of you. But in circumstances where it is not a healthy relationship, then that becomes a situation of power. I'm the person with power, and then you're the person who you don't have any power. And so you really have no say in what gets done or what you as an individual can do because you have no power in that relationship.
So at the end of the day, it sort of shifts power dynamics, right, between any sort of intimate partner that you have, and women don't really get to have a say in that if they do not have that financial control, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So how do we actually tell girls to build financial autonomy? Because when I was a kid, I was always told money is very important. Money is very important. You must have your own money. But I never actually got the guidance on how.
Yes.
So from that perspective, how can we tell younger girls, like, start having your own money, doing everything, but also sort of not make them feel that barrier that, oh wait, does that mean I have to be antagonistic towards my partner in future? So
yes. So I'm going to say you're right. We don't teach it in school necessarily. We don't teach budgeting. We don't teach finance in school so that everybody, but certainly young women, can understand the importance of it can be a part of your life without having to be a focal point, right? Like if it's something that you're taught from young, that this is just something that you do, even if it's subconsciously from a protection perspective, always to be able to have your ability to be able to have money that you can tap into. And I think the ability or the understanding that people should start saving from young is another thing that we don't teach in school. So, it doesn't matter how much it is or whatever it is, can start saving from young and consistently save as you go through your 20s and your 30s, which traditionally are decades where you're spending more, but certainly with that mindset of, I'm putting something aside each time because that is going to give me the ability to be able to do anything I want to do.
That is beautiful and also so simple if you think about it. But then when putting into actions, honestly, we don't really think that deeply about why it's so important for us, and
Yes.
particularly kids. At that stage, everyone's like, oh, I want to go out to, spend time with my friends and then, go to the movies or whatever young people are super interested in. Essentially, they're thinking about themselves. But at that crucial stage, they should be, again, also thinking about how they can save a bit of money for themselves. I think I want to think about individuality in this case because we started this campaign, Light the Path. Viewers, you probably have seen across our socials. We are raising funds for survivors of invisible violence like financial abuse as well as emotional abuse. But one of the things that keep coming up to us is a lot of people don't really think this as violence. When someone's trying to control your money, when someone's trying to sort of take over and you're not really holding the reins.
Yes.
So from that perspective, how do you share with your friends, family, or anybody else what actually financial violence is?
Yeah, it's a hard one because some people see it, and it also is a cultural conversation as well too, right? In some cultures, the fact that the man is traditionally the person who is running the household, and so for you to ask for or expect to be just given an allowance, it's just so it's the norm, right? Whereas the understanding or having the conversation with people to say, hey, it's totally fine for someone else to sort of control the overall household budget, but still also fine for you to have income or to have money in some form or fashion and not have to rely on somebody else so heavily to be able to do the smallest little things.
Right. It is just honestly so important to hold your own reins, I feel, because a lot of women are also taught, again, I'm mentioning women because this is significantly a gender-based violence issue.
Yes.
Financial abuse across sectors. So a lot of women are taught that you focus on the home, you don't really have to focus on the money, someone else will take care of it. It can be a father figure, it can be intimate partners, right?
Yes.
So from that perspective, if we think about it, how do you sort of balance between having a conversation with your partner about accountability, because a lot of abusers actually call it accountability when it comes to finances, but in the end they're actually coercively controlling you.
Yes.
So how do you strike that balance?
Yeah, that's a hard one, especially depending on the individuals involved, right? So because financial abuse is also a power play, so I'm using and it may be very subtle as well too, right? So it's I make the money, I hold on to the money, I give you a little bit of money for you to do, to buy the shopping or whatever the case is, but it's really, this is the way how I control your movement. Whereas if you're in a relationship where you're equal, like the conversation should really be about, okay, so we are combining our finances and, even if it so happens that, the male in the relationship is the person still managing the money, the conversation should still be about, well, we both put money in, how, both of us having access to it. And how is that, it's not an allowance conversation. It is, the household is being run by both of us. And some of us, my role may be that I'm paying for the bills, and maybe your role is that you're paying for certain types of expenses. So again, it's really about understanding or having the understanding together that we are using our money to for the betterment of all of us. And it isn't just about one person holding the strings to be able to control the behavior of the other person.
That is a very good point, which actually makes me think about something that the interwebs are discussing. regarding, again, the pain points of feminism. Sorry for the term, but essentially a lot of people are thinking that, okay, someone wants to be a stay-at-home parent, a woman wants to be a stay-at-home mom, and that's totally fine, right? But then when the financial independence and autonomy conversation comes in, a lot of times, what you just mentioned, that it is an equal partnership regardless of who's breadwinning, right? Whoever's bringing in the money, it has to be split in a way that works for both of them. But then, how can we sort of share that, this what does this autonomy look for someone, say, potentially, who might be staying at home?
Yeah, it's a good question, because to your point, again, it is about, it can't be a dynamic of I make more, I bring more into the relationship than you, so I'm the one who's going to control. Like, it can't be that. It's got to be, we have chosen to coexist together. And so, regardless of who's making the money, we are going to use this money for the betterment of all of us. And so it's not always an easy conversation. I think it's, first of all, I do believe, though, it's a conversation that you need to have with someone when you're going into a relationship. It can't be blinders on. Like, we can't just
Yes.
assume that this is the
Yes.
situation and, that we're all going to arrive at this conclusion automatically. We need to talk about it more, for sure.
Okay, so one of the biggest steps is talking about it.
Yes.
And when we think about, like, going from trials to triumph and sort of looking within, a lot of these conversations, I feel, have to start from within us. Talking to a partner, if you're particularly in a situation where you're facing intimate partner violence of some sort, might be very difficult, and we do not actually know the circumstances they're in, so we can't even advise. However, how do we have these conversations with ourselves? Because, like I was mentioning earlier, I always know, or I've always been taught, or a generation of women have been taught, that you need to save money, you need to have, like, money. But then, I feel sort of a bit of a shame to even talk to my partner, who's an amazing person. Under the circumstances, I can't share with him, because I feel that, oh, I should already know this. I should have it in my head. I should figure it out. At this stage in life, a
Yes.
lot of women who come to the center, a lot of women we interact with every day, actually have children, are of different ages, different backgrounds, right? But then you reach a stage when you're like, oh, is it too late to even think about this? I should know, where do I go? What do I do? So how do we sort of talk to ourselves?
So first of all, it's never too late. I say start young for sure, but it is never too late to start talking about it and then to start doing something about it. So even if it is that you're just putting aside $5, $10 each week, whatever that is, to start doing it. And if it is difficult, because depending on the circumstance, you may not have access to those funds yourself, but certainly it's never too late to have the conversation. And if you are comfortable with your partner, to talk to your partner about it. Because in this circumstance, no question is a stupid question, to be quite honest. And no question around sort of how our financially, how do we do this? Like, what does our finances look like? What sort of bills are we paying? Where's this money? How is the money being spent? Like, those conversations should never be conversations that are just held in our mind. Like, we should be having the conversation openly, because it concerns everybody in the relationship.
Right. If both the partners are sort of financially sound, be it in practice or actually with money in the bank, it benefits the whole family, right?
Yes.
It's both contributing to the unit. But I'm gonna go back to the conversation about how women, a lot of times, like, if they are sort of also approaching careers, they might not be really thinking about sort of building wealth, or like,
Yes.
building anything. So from that perspective, and since you've been a sector leader in business for so many years nationally, I just want to know, like, in a career, what does financial autonomy look like?
Ooh, so in a career, so I would say you're right. Women tend to be more focused. Like, if you're working, you're thinking, I'm making money and I'm supporting my kids, let's say, for instance, right? So usually the thought process is always to go towards supporting the family and to be able to support the kids, and which is totally great. But I think that from a woman's perspective, you always have to think about being able to, for the long term. So you're saving for the long term, right? And so, yes, I have, let's say it's 100% and I'm making X number of dollars, it's 100%. 50% goes towards maybe the household income. Another 20% goes towards something for the kids or the kids' education. And then a little 10% goes towards me being able to build a little nest egg, right? Like, I think you've got to think about it in those terms and break it down as well, sort of, to be able to know that I'm saving, but I'm also putting it, like I'm assigning it to certain things so that it doesn't feel like you're just constantly, because sometimes people spend, but they don't necessarily think about the budgeting aspect of it, right? So I'm a big believer in budgeting, and I think that you need to be able
I
to
don't
break it down.
myself, so
You have to be able to break it down
yeah,
and to break your savings down as well.
that makes complete sense. I think sometimes we lose the bigger picture. Hearing that, I'm thinking like we think again, coming down to yes, we need to do this, but then why are we doing this? Essentially, coming back to that, of course, financial autonomy is important. We believe in it, which is why we're also talking about it. And I also have seen a lot of women who've gone through these doors, as well as interacted with a lot of women who at a very later stage in life is realizing the need for autonomy, right?
Yes.
And a lot of people are told that, okay, you're going to figure it out eventually. But in those circumstances, like, how do we really sort of calm ourselves down and sort of specifically plan for ourselves? You mentioned very clearly that we should have assigned budget specifically, and that is a brilliant idea. Very simple, but very effective. But how can we think more about this issue from the perspective of I am investing in me?
Mm. Yes, I'm a big believer in investing in me.
Oh, yay.
Right? You know, because yes, I think the family unit survives based on the fact that everybody is fulfilled. And fulfillment isn't just about your job or whatever, but you have to feed your soul, whatever that looks like for
Yes.
you. Right. And so I'm a big believer in that. So again, I say it is about thinking about, okay, yes, we as women, we always put everyone else first. But it isn't selfish
Yes.
to think about yourself as, because you have to feel whole to be able to take care of other people. You can't pour into others if you have nothing to give. So I do think that you also have to think about yourself and think about your financial autonomy from the perspective of me being able to do whatever that might be. You know, whatever the little thing it is that I'm thinking I want to do from a growth perspective, either it's from a professional perspective or from a personal perspective. Me being able to do these things makes me a more complete person, and it allows me to be able to give more to my family or to my situation. You know, so I think that's so important.
Oh, that is so beautiful and so true, because like you said, we cannot really pour if we're not pouring onto ourselves,
Yeah.
right? We need to sort of refill us before we can sort of take care of everyone else.
Yes.
And that is an amazing thing, but we forget most of the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So in relationships, we've all asked this question to ourselves at some point, possibly, but we never really go into a relationship thinking, oh, I need to protect myself. Oh, I need to sort of, make myself safe when I'm getting into any sort of long-term relationship, because obviously we're in love. Love is beautiful,
Yes.
and we want to build relationships with partners, right? But the reality of the matter is, for women, we again still need to hold the reins of our finances and make sure in some capacity that
Yes.
if for whatever reason that's gone, we are not gone with it.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, again, I don't want to sound mean, but how can we sort of have like insurance
Mhm.
when building a relationship with a partner,
Yes.
within ourselves, before we sort of approach these conversations with partners, or maybe even then, that finances needed to be separate in some capacity? Sort of, how do we sort of strike these conversations when we're starting like newer relationships, say?
So I always think, you know, when you go into a relationship, you would have had an account, or you would have had your own finances at some point, let's say, if you're working, and the other person would have had their own. So, you know, you could start from the perspective of, we're going to create a net new joint account.
Okay.
Right. So then you can still maintain yours, I can still maintain mine for the purposes, and then we will bring together funds to run the household and whatever. So then that way that everybody's not totally depleted, and then over time that might shift. So the percentage of money that you're moving from your own personal account to your joint account might shift. And so maybe you're putting your 90% in there, you're only holding back a little 10% because you just want to continue your, you know, to hold a little financial autonomy over here. But I do think that you could start with that. You know, we're going to come together to create a new joint account, and then we're going to put our money, some portion of our money, and that would have to be agreed upon, into the joint account, and that's how we move forward. Just, you know, from that point.
But then talking about money is so shameful. It's so awkward,
It
right?
is difficult.
It's so weird. Like, how do you even bring this up? You started dating somebody, and then they're really nice, and it's so fun, and then you can feel you're building something
Yes.
together. It's so fresh, but then how do you even bring it up? Like, I can't imagine.
It's a hard conversation, you know. I mean, it's one of those things where it because people equate money to like, you know, how much you're giving to the relationship.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so it's like if you so some people feel like if you're not giving of your money, you're not giving of yourself.
Ah,
Right.
wow. Okay. Yes.
Which is, you know, which is a hard perspective to look at,
Yeah.
right? So certainly it is a difficult conversation, but one that has to be had. Otherwise, you're not entering into that relationship in a true fashion, in a true partnership fashion. You know, because then you're trying to keep back something and it should all be out on the table. And so I think it's really important, no matter how clumsy the conversation might be when you first start, it's really important to have the conversation. And the conversation may go very well. The other person's like, you know what? I'm fine with you keeping your own money on that side. Like, it may not be like this gloom and doom that we think in our mind, right? It may just be a totally normal conversation. We may all be completely on the same page, but we still have to have the conversation.
That is the hope, and that is like the action we need to take about that hope, right? Yeah, because if we don't do it, we won't know.
Yes.
That's another thing about partnerships, because a lot of the financial abuse and control starts off with small things, right?
Yes.
You never really think. Everyone builds it up in their head, if they even know about it, is, oh, it's going to be some blast, something massive or extensive that's going to happen to you.
Right, that you will then realize that you're in this sort of situation.
Yes, yeah.
Which is not the case.
Right?
Yes.
Like, it sort of creeps up on you,
Yeah.
right? It's sometimes like between partnerships, it starts off with, oh, what are you spending on? Oh, like, we should all treat ourselves. We should all have some fun. We should be fiscally responsible, regardless of what part of our lives we're trying to run. But then it creeps up, like, oh, why are you spending on this? Or did you really need to, like, spend on this? Did you need to do that? So from that part onwards, like, what do you do when it creeps up on you, and what are the specific signs you think, like, that we sort of should, press alarm bells in our head? What are those creepy signs that lead up to this eventually? Because we're not thinking of the small things, we're thinking of, oh, it's going to be big.
Yes, true. I would say some of the signs would be, so a couple of things. If you were originally in the relationship, you were, sort of both managing money, the money at that point in time, and then over time the partner has taken over managing the money, and then they're the ones who sort of, advising you on what to use the money on, or then saying, you know what, you shouldn't spend money on this. If I give you, I'm going to give you X number of dollars, and you can use that to do your thing, because that's one way of, controlling someone, by being the person that's trying to pull back the purse strings. The other one could also be limiting that person from gaining access to funding that may not be directly in the partner's control. So for instance, let's say you've got family money, or your family has money, and maybe in some way you're receiving funding from them, but then it's like, you know what, we should be doing this ourselves. You don't need to be taking money for other people. And then you're sort of pulling them back and taking the reins that way. That's another way of doing it. I think just sort of subtly, to your point, if someone is asking, like, saying to you, well, what are you spending the money on? Or why did you spend that much money? You shouldn't have spent that much money. You should be, then I think, to me, it's a little bit of you want to make sure that we both understand that the spending of money is, we're both trying to be fiscally responsible. So you're asking me what I'm spending money on. I should be able to ask you the same question as well, too, frankly. And then we should both be able to come together and say, hey, you know what? We spent a little too much money on our mad money this month, or whatever it is. We need to come back together and be more fiscally responsible. We're not going to spend any more money on these things because we've got a budget. We're working towards this. Like, I think it's important that if that person's asking you questions, you can also ask questions, and you don't feel in fear of being able to ask those questions.
Field,
exactly.
Right. Okay. So I want to know a bit more about you.
Mm-hmm.
So since we have an idea about, like, these small things, how they come up, and sort of like how we can sort of deal with it. You started your career many years ago,
Yes.
and you have been through the trenches. You are in a position right now with a wealth of experience, but it didn't start off that way, right?
Yep.
So can you please share, like, how was it for you when you started your career about money, and how is it for you now? How do you view money itself?
So I will say my experience is probably a little bit different, because I was a very sort of fiscally responsible kid. I was, every summer job I had, I always put my money away. I always put my money away.
Go girl.
Yeah. When I moved to Canada.
Cannot relate.
No, I brought my little bank account with me.
Oh,
and
wow.
So I was a little bit of an odd duck, I will fully admit.
Okay.
The one thing I will say, though, over my life, Even in my 20s, when I first started working, the one thing I always wanted to make sure to do was to save money consistently. So every month, I put away X number of dollars each month automatically, just so it goes towards, and it doesn't take anything away from me, right? Like I don't have to think about it. It's automatically happening and it's just growing as it goes. And I always say to people, it's the easiest way to be able to save money is to do it on a consistent basis. Just sort of set it and forget it kind of situation.
Set it and forget it. Right.
Yeah.
Honestly, that is an amazing thing to think about. Not only is it catchy, it is going to directly make you want to like set aside something, and you don't really have to like rack your brain about how to sort of do a better job or good job, as long as you did it. Right?
Yes. And then also, if you're also investing or whatever, then you don't have to wait till the end of the year, RSP season or whatever, to then try to find money to put it in. Like if you set it and forget it, whatever you're putting it into, a TFSA, whatever that vehicle might be, then into the bank account, it goes in, you don't have to worry about it. But at least you have peace of mind to know that it's continuing to grow because you've put it aside and you're consistently doing that throughout the year.
It's out of sight, out of mind.
Yes.
But then you did it that way. You intentionally put it away.
Yes.
So that you're, again, building something for yourself.
Yes. And then my relationship with money now, I guess, is probably about the same. I mean, in my household, I am the person who runs the purse strings. I will fully admit that. And my husband will also fully admit that.
That is wonderful.
But it's just because it is just, for me, it's always been my thing. So it's, that's just naturally how it's grown up. But certainly, I am the sort of person who I believe in budgeting. I believe in everybody having having a full understanding of what our financial position is. So it doesn't matter who it is, what we're bringing in. We all know what it is. We know what our expenses are. We know what we're building towards. We know what we're saving. So we're all in on the financial position. And then that makes it easier to have these conversations because we all know, and it doesn't matter who's bringing what in. Like, we are together working to build this life together. So we're going to, work together to make sure that if for whatever reason, let's say, for instance, I'm not working, then it doesn't matter. Like, if he's making the money, it's not a big deal. If I'm making the money, it's not a big deal. Like we are both putting it in together and then we are moving forward like that.
Okay. I did not have that kind of wisdom when I was in my teens as a young adult, not at all. So from that perspective, a lot of your peers,
yes,
and some of mine as well, and myself, did not think about money at all.
Yes.
It other than the shame attached to it, it was more like some of us were like, it'll happen. We'll figure it out, right?
Yes.
Sort of like, because it feels blasé in a lot
yes.
of ways. It's going to happen. But when we reach a particular stage in our lives, say we were financially dependent on someone for a very long time, and then that cuts off.
Yes.
We have heard stories very recently, even in our last podcast, the amazing guest was sharing about one of her friends who went through a terrible partnership dissolvement, and she was fully financially dependent on her partner.
Yes.
And suddenly there was a cutoff.
Yeah.
And that wreaked havoc for her children. So in those scenarios, we're going to set out planning aside in the sense that we don't know, we have to plan.
Yes.
Say you are in a situation right now that hasn't happened, but then you are still that vulnerable. You're still that exposed to, if that happens, what will you do? So what can we do in that situation? Someone who has, say, not worked
outside the home,
outside the home,
okay. Yes.
In a professional capacity.
Yep.
They have been amazing homemakers, as well as women who've run the home.
Yes.
In that scenario, for whatever reason, their partnership dissolves. They do not have that financial support anymore at all. So, and that happens to more women than we can count, honestly, across cultures, across countries. So from that perspective, what can they do at that stage?
That is a hard one, because not only are you financially cut off, now you've also got to think about, well, how am I going to move forward to be able to take care of my family? So you've got a couple of things that you're worrying about. You're trying to figure out, well, how do I get a job or a way to be able to bring some money into the house so that we can start to get back on our feet? It may not be about saving at that point. It's just about survival.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to say that one is a difficult one, but I would probably suggest taking advantage of the services in your area. So provincially provided services or municipally provided services that can help you to be able to, probably to prop you up a little bit as you get back on your feet. Because I think it's going to be a hard start. And so taking advantage of services like what we offer here at the center, if it's either employment type counseling or legal counseling or whatever the case may be. Take advantage of those services to at least get an understanding of the things, because you may not know the things you don't know. Right.
Exactly.
To be able to figure out, well, where do I go from here?
Yes.
Or how do I get on my feet?
Yeah.
So take advantage of those services. And then once you know, once you get a bit of an understanding of what needs to happen, then you can start to, I'm going to call it a plan as well. It's not quite a financial plan, but certainly then you can put a plan in place as to how you want to move forward. And then what needs to happen for you to move forward.
Right. It's not an end all.
Yes.
Just because it has happened, the world is falling apart. I cannot imagine what can happen in that circumstance, what they're going through, because not only they have responsibilities, now they need to build a future that they don't know they can.
Exactly.
From that perspective. But that is very true. A lot of people don't actually know the resources that are available provincially. And our center also partners with a lot of other community partners, and we also provide some of these like financial management sort of free sessions as well.
Yes.
But then beyond us, there are so many resources available, even in the libraries, as well as a lot of other sort of resource centers where we can just go and start looking.
Yeah.
It's never going to be a cutout plan, right? Yeah. We can never plan about these things. But then at that moment when we are like standing still with nothing in front of us, do you feel like that is a blank slate that can be worked on?
Oh, yeah, it can be. But it's going to take a lot of, not just time, but it's going to take a lot of inner power to be able to sort of fortitude, to be able to kind of feel like you can do it and move forward. Because that's the other thing, right? At that point, you may be at the lowest point you've ever been in your life. And maybe you don't feel like you have that power to be able to pick yourself up and move forward. And truthfully, that's the part where it's like, it's the belief in yourself as well that's going to be needed. And I think that is a big foundation for sort of moving forward. It may not happen all at one time. It's going to be baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. And sometimes you may go back 2 steps before you go forward again, for sure. But I think having that belief and the ability to know, okay, you know what? I can do it, and there's people and places out there to help me do it, I think is also very important, because I'm not in this alone is the other thing.
That's true. A lot of times we feel so isolated, and that is where abusers sort of get you.
Yes.
That is where they sort of one, if you're not isolated, they make you isolated. They sort of start cutting you away from your family, friends, these resources that might be available. Not all resources are at a center. They are sometimes within your own community, right?
Yes.
We have a lot of amazing community supporters, and we have a lot of people who are there sort of to make sure the women we support are, taken care of. But the abusers, again, sort of isolate them from this, right? They isolate them from their families, any sort of network. And that's when they sort of doing the whole creepy, why are you doing this? Why are you spending on this? Like the financial violence slowly starts. So, but to your point, sort of having that thought process, I think we need to sort of train our brain, right? That we can do it. We don't know how, but we can do it. It's going to be a long road, like you said. It's going to take a lot, but then we still can do it. I think we don't really think about that a lot of times when we're in sort of that situation.
Yes.
How do we sort of make ourselves feel confident, right? Like we can do this. We will be able to do this. Maybe you don't know how, but then getting there.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And being able to, it's not a formula that goes across everything, right? Like it's not
That's true.
To be able to say, oh my gosh, I can do this. It's one thing to be able to say you can do it, but then also to feel like, you've got like if you've got kids and they're relying on you to be able to do this and to figure out something for the family to move forward. It's not always easy for you to look around and say, hey, you know what? I can do this. It is more about knowing that there are people there to help as well, I think is really important, because that feeling of not being alone is so important at the point in time where you just feel completely alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is true. For those who are watching, Julianne, you already probably know, is the chair of the board of directors of the Women's Center of Halton. She's a boss lady. She's amazing. But I'm going to ask you, there are hard days, I'm sure, that you go through.
Yes.
There are days when you don't have everything together. We all have those days. So how do you, as Julianne Trotman, fill your cup?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I'm going to say yes. I have many of those days where you feel like you're either not enough or you're not measuring up to the standard that you have of yourself or whatever the case is. I think I'm learning more and more that you do have to find those quiet times. And the quiet time may not necessarily be you sitting and meditating. That may not be your thing. For me, quiet time is music and movement.
Okay.
Yeah, so that for me really sort of brings me back to sort of the reality of life, and really helps to ground me. Um, Not always easy, totally, but
Yeah.
but I think I'm feeling like I'm getting a little better at it, like being able to create those quiet moments where then I can say to myself, you know what, I am enough, and yes, what I'm doing is enough at this point in time. This is as much as I can give to this circumstance, and I'm good. I'm giving it all I've got.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we all have those days. I actually relate to that a lot. I'm the kind of person who listens to music a lot, and sort of taking that time to myself. I would like to say zone out, because everything can get super overwhelming, right?
Yes.
Those days, be it some we're having like very difficult times with our partners, or it's a day-to-day thing that we cannot resolve, or we're really
Yes.
trying hard to resolve. It's hard to switch off. It is, and it makes us also human, right? So
Yes.
from my perspective, I just listen to music, try to zone out as much as possible.
Yeah.
What you said, like just take time for you, right?
Yes.
I think that is something we all struggle with.
Yeah.
And that is what sort of, even though we struggle with it, if we can manage to do it, that's what pushes us forward, right?
It does. And the other thing I also have come to realize recently is yes, take time for you, but again, it doesn't always have to be on you. Like it could be, a group of friends getting together just to sit and have a nice little chat, or just to hang out, like whatever it is, whatever that thing is that that helps to ground you, I think that's the thing that you need to figure out and gravitate towards.
Honestly, yes. Female friendships are not celebrated enough.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I appreciate from a very young age was essentially making friends in the bathroom. When girls go to the bathroom, we're best friends,
Oh, I love
regardless
that.
where we are. We have each other's back, and then we have these intimate relationships with friends in our lives. Sometimes we also feel ashamed to talk about money with them, right?
Yes.
Not, I mean, a lot of my friends, I wouldn't feel comfortable sharing my financial situation with them, not even though they're very close friends, from the perspective I'll be judged. But I know it's not really logical,
Yes.
because it's my brain telling me. But then how do we sort of deal with that?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I mean, it is true, because having those conversations with friends can be sometimes difficult, even if they're the best of friends. But again, I feel like if you put it in a perspective of, it doesn't have to be down to the nuts and bolts of the dollars and cents, right?
Mhm.
It's more of circumstantial. This is kind of the circumstance that I'm in. This is sort of what I'm struggling with. What do you think I should do? That kind of thing, versus necessarily, well, we make X, we spend X. Like, it doesn't have to go to that level,
Mhm.
but certainly just to get the camaraderie and the friendship, from someone, like from a close friend, as you're having these conversations, and then just making it a little bit more general, I think is always helpful. And then again, knowing the type of friends that you have too, right?
Right. Type of friends.
Yes.
How do you this is, even I know it's a weird question. So when it comes to friendships as well as partnerships,
Mhm.
how do you know when things get a little iffy? What are these red flags, from that perspective, that you think about violence, in the sense that who do I feel safe to share with?
Yes.
Because finances, financial autonomy, being independent, these things are so central to one's being, right? Regardless of gender. But then when it comes to women, we guard ourselves a lot more to
Yes.
keep ourselves safe.
Yep.
From that perspective, how would I know, or how would a woman know, like what are the sort of red flags that we should not sort of share these with? For example, friends, partners, what are those red flags?
Oh, I think that one's got to be situational. Like, I do feel if you know the person well enough, and you, even although it's not a comfortable conversation, you know that they're going to react by having your back. Versus, like, sometimes you have those friends or people in your circle who aren't necessarily, they're all about themselves type of a situation, right? And
Yes,
so
we
in
have
that
some of
case,
those.
you just you have to know the individuals that you're speaking to, and sort of who the people you are that you trust, and who will have your back. And I think that's the most important thing.
That is so true, because our communities, even though we don't maybe see it that way, start from around us, right?
Yes.
Like a friend of a friend, and then someone in the family, someone close by. That's how we sort of grow our network, right?
Yes.
But then, do we always have these conversations with them? No, because finances are always, oh, it's personal. We don't even talk about, like, say, what we get from work with our peers. We do not talk to other women about it. Say they're not even in the company, they're like working in a completely different sector, but not everyone's going to talk about what they earn.
No,
They're not going to
no.
talk about, like, sort of scratching the ceiling, like how are they going to break it. 'Cause it's just, there's so much shame. I'm sorry I'm coming back to this again. There's always so much shame surrounding a lot of things that affect women so badly. So how can we sort of, like, take away the shame? Or the only way I can think of at this stage is we talk about it, right? We are talking
Yes.
about it, and thank you so much for joining us today. So we're talking about it, but then how do we again sort of detach the shame from these conversations in our heads?
Yeah, I think it's just, you have to look at it as like anything else. You have to eat to live. You have to drink water to make sure that you maintain your health. Like, these are things that we have to do, and we know we have to do them. And so the financial conversation should be part of that.
Okay.
Right? It should be
Like
something
the
that,
basics.
exactly. It's a basic thing in life that we do because we know that this is going to be for the betterment of our health.
That's it.
Physical or financial doesn't
Direct.
matter.
Okay. Yes. So if we actually believe that this is the norm, that we are supposed to talk about money, we are supposed to work with money, we are supposed to sort of sort our finances, I think that would again start these conversations about, okay, that is a basic. How can I expect the basic from our partners? How can we expect the basic from our surroundings, right?
Yes.
So, and that hopefully will also help women who are going through these very negative circumstances sort of catch when the sort of control is coming in, when someone's like not meeting them at their financial sort of conversation level. I would say conversation level first.
Yeah.
Because it starts with a conversation. You said that, right?
Yes.
So it starts with a conversation, and if a partner is not really willing to have this conversation with you, then, I mean, one, are you willing to have this conversation? Why not? Because you don't feel safe, maybe. So these are questions you ask yourself. And then if the partner is not willing to have this conversation with you, then okay, maybe we need to sort of take a few step backs and think a bit more, right? So from that, like, how do we train ourselves to ask these questions? Like, there has to be some specific questions that are safe questions, maybe, about money. So what do you think those could be? Maybe.
I will say, the other thing I was thinking about as you were speaking was, for many people, not just women, but for men as well, their relationship to money may be different than yours.
Oh,
right. So
right.
for some people, it may have been that they got into trouble with money in the past. Maybe they have a lot of debt or whatever. And that, it could be a shameful conference. Like, they feel like it's a shameful conversation, right? So maybe not everybody comes to the table at the same, like, having the same relationship to money. And I think that's also something that we have to think about when we're having these conversations.
That is
right.
true.
So maybe they won't be able to talk about it right away, or maybe they won't be able to get sort of to the same level or the same point in the conversation that we're at that point. It is not to say that we shouldn't still be having the conversation, but it may take a little bit longer to get there, because maybe there's something in their past that has made their relationship to money a little less forthcoming than they want it to be when they're having those conversations.
Right. That is actually, I didn't really think of it that way. Not everyone's at the same stage of life.
Yes.
Not everyone is at the same stage with money themselves.
Yeah.
So how do you even bring up that conversation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that one can be hard, right? Like, for some people, it could very well, it could take some time for them to work through sort of whatever it is that they've gone through, to be able to feel like, okay, now I can openly have this conversation with you, because I feel like we're both at that, we're both moving in the same direction, and we're not, like, I'm not feeling like I'm bringing this sort of burden to the relationship. I'm also able to contribute as well.
Right.
Yeah.
That is completely fair. And also for women who are watching, and honestly, like, thinking about this, hopefully through this conversation with you, I hope they're also thinking about what money means to them, because that is where, your relationship with money comes to, right?
Yes.
Like, however we might feel about money, it might be a very different thing to the partner or friend or family member, right? It might mean differently to them. Like, and when those values crash or clash with one another, that can sort of,
that's where you can then get a lot of sort of, there's that mixed match of, and maybe the conversation is not a smooth one, because, as you said, we're at different points in our lives, or we're at different stages. And so when things clash, then it's really about trying to figure out, well, how do we have the conversation and sort of move to a point where we're both feeling comfortable moving forward as we talk about it.
Right. Comfort. This is something I don't think women always get to have in relationships.
Yeah.
because a lot of women who are going through financial abuse, emotional abuse, and they've just left the relationship, it is very traumatic. So sort of think
Yes.
about it, because they're at a loss about what to do with their lives, but then at the same time they're like starting from a blank slate in some cases, sort of picking up the pieces or maybe having to make new ones.
Yes.
And thinking about money then becomes the basic necessity. Like you mentioned, it should be from the beginning, from when we're young, but it really isn't.
Yes.
So in these situations, because a lot of people have children, and this is not a place where I can sort of give input, but like from a perspective of a mother,
Hmm.
from a guardian, sort of how would you sort of share that? How can you instill within children, particularly, that financial independence, autonomy, it's a strength and a basic need? Like, how
Yes.
do you do that with kids who are kids, not
Yes.
like
Yeah.
teenagers who
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
some like idea, like when they're very young?
I think, first of all, it's important for kids to learn that there is a value exchange with money. So it isn't just, money just doesn't appear from anywhere, just out of thin air, and it just shows up, right? Like there needs to be an understanding of, like, so for instance, if you were giving your kids an allowance, a small allowance, that they understand that there's a value exchange in getting this money. You've done something for this service, you've received this money. It isn't that it's just free for the purposes of a conversation. And I think that helps to instill in kids the understanding that, what, I have to have respect for it, and I have to also understand that I cannot do things in life without having some sort of a relationship with money, and I need to be able to have that relationship by being able to give something to get something. So there's got to be a value exchange so that people learn that there is a value to money. And I think then on top of sort of that conversation, it's also about, well, how do you then not safeguard your money, but how do you then find a way to be able to understand that having money doesn't mean that you're just going to go out there and spend it as well, right? So I've gotten $2 today. I'm going to go spend $2 on candy or whatever that might be, if one can still buy candy for $2. But it is that, I'm also going to be, there's a value to me having this money and saving this money, because at some point in time, I'm going to want something. And how am I going to get this? Well, mom and dad are going to put some of it in, but maybe I put some of my own in. So then I understand that, what, it isn't coming to me freely.
Yeah, I contributed.
I contributed to it, and then I've got some ownership in sort of whatever that item is.
Right, yeah. Like speaking from an ownership perspective, like I think kids actually finding out, especially little girls, that I have a part to play in this. I think that also starts a conversation, right?
Yes.
Because again, no one wakes up like right after they're born and then like, okay, money's gonna happen.
Yes.
Like you mentioned, it has to be like instilled within kids, and like sort of seeing the value of money itself before they can spend, they can do whatever. But then is there any way we should be like, I personally believe it, but then from a perspective of building ownership, how can little girls across the world sort of build that ownership and their relationship money from early on, but also sort of like focus on being an entrepreneur in some capacity later?
Well, I was going to say so a lot of little girls around the world are like entrepreneurs, right? So let's say, for instance, they're making crafts, they're, knitting or crocheting or whatever that might
Painting,
be.
creating art.
Exactly. And then they're selling that to be able to raise money for a school project or whatever that might be, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
the understanding that I have, like, what I give into the world, there's a value associated with it, and that this money or the value that's coming back to me is something that I need to cherish that relationship. It is, I've worked for it. I give ownership of it because I've made this piece or whatever. I've done this thing, and now I'm going to give it to someone else who's going to give me some money, and who is then saying to me, you know what, there's value in what you bring to the table. And then the money is the thing that it really is the physical attribute of that relationship.
That is amazing, because we need to cherish what we put out into the world, right?
Yeah.
And when we are hopefully building young entrepreneurs, telling girls to sort of take control of their future, and then build something, they're contributing, but then we need to hopefully make them more business minded. Because if they're already entrepreneurs and they can sort of feel the value in what they're contributing, they will hopefully be able to sort of build themselves up and grow up to be amazing women like you.
Well,
And
and
in
not only just the entrepreneurial aspect of it, but also like for themselves, but also what they give back to the world.
right,
Right? Which
right,
I also think
yeah,
is super important. So being able to understand the concept of, yes, I receive, but I'm also going to share.
yeah, that is beautiful. Like sharing wealth of knowledge as well as actual wealth itself honestly brings up communities and helps others. One of the things that we see a lot is a lot of amazing people who, whatever they're earning, women leaders in businesses, what they're trying to do is they're trying to give back,
Yes.
because what that does is honestly that encourages more young women
Yeah.
to sort of dream that they can maybe, and also hopefully start doing something of their own that will contribute, or maybe just get the support they need. Like,
Yes.
it's very difficult to find support in these circumstances from like our surroundings, and honestly being able to see someone else do it, there are a lot of people who learn from books, there are a lot of people learn from doing, and there are a lot of people learn from seeing, right? We don't see a lot of women talk about money.
Yes,
We,
that's true.
right? Like you've been in different sectors, you've been working across like so many different companies. Like, how do you like sort of see women approach this in those situations, in those higher levels, going into those big rooms? Why do you think women don't talk about money even when they're in those rooms?
And why we should be talking about money.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Because I mean, we talk about the fact that the glass ceiling is being broken, and let's be honest, it isn't being broken that quickly, right? And so the fact that women still make less than men per dollar, no matter across almost every level of business.
Yeah.
The fact that a woman CEO is still going to be making less than her male counterpart 9 times out of 10. So we should be having these conversations, because if we don't ask for it, we will never get it. Right. So if you're
Right.
going into a circumstance and you're trying to negotiate for, your salary or whatever it is, when you're going into those rooms, you have to believe that you deserve it. You have to believe that you deserve to be in that room, and that you deserve to be paid equally what your male counterparts are being paid. And that is still a part that we are struggling for very much across the board.
Yeah, I can only imagine, because when I see someone in a leadership position and it is not a group of men and there are women there, I automatically think it just sort of shifts my thought. Like, okay, that can, it can be so many women there, but then it also encouraged me, maybe I can think about that. Maybe in
Yes.
some capacity, I will be in a room like that. But then I'm not really thinking about, oh, should I aim higher? A lot of women are not thinking of aiming higher because they're concerned that, okay, I'm okay. I'm letting, money's coming in, I'm earning, I'm doing okay. What is the difference, I think, between being content about your circumstances, but then also encouraging women to sort of like push forward to their potential, do you think?
So for some people, you know, contentment is what they want. Like, some people really don't necessarily want to be, CEO or president or
Sure.
whatever, which is
Yeah.
totally great.
That's
Right.
fair.
So
Yeah.
it's totally fine. But I do think the fact that you believe, not only you may not want to do it, but that you believe that you can do it. Right. Because the difference is, it's belief. I was watching the other day, and I was looking at this stat where they say people who apply for jobs, men will apply for jobs just based on the fact that the job is there, and they're like, okay, fine, whatever. Many women will not apply for a job if they don't think that they have every single
Right.
thing that's in that
Tick box,
job
tick box.
description, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so it is, as women, we just don't necessarily always so we don't see in ourselves that we can do anything, and have the strength to go out there and just do it, which
Right.
is not always easy, but certainly to be able to put yourself out there. And if it's something that you want, so again, if it is something that you want to do, to climb the corporate ladder or to own your own business or whatever, you are going to have to struggle to do it. And nobody else is going to advocate for you but yourself. Like, if you aren't advocating for yourself, you can't expect somebody else to. So you also
That's
have
true.
to advocate for yourself,
Yes.
and then build up your allies, etc., to be able to help you to get to that next level.
That's true. It all starts from finding your center.
Yes.
Right? It starts with finding yourself, finding your center, and hopefully being that wonderful one woman and also seeing that in others, hopefully.
Yes.
So on that note, I'm going to bring out this very cool box. So we started this segment, and we're really proud of it. Is the grandmother's box, and across cultures, we always have a grandmother's box where there are like a lot of things. This is the box of wisdom, and honestly, Julianne, before we wrap up, it'd be really nice if you could like share like a proverb or a quote or something that means a lot to you or sort of connects you to financial independence, autonomy, anything that touches you, so that we can sort of at the end of uh, everything like share these quotes so that they inspire other women as well.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm also going to write one, and we're going to put it in the box.
Okay.
We already have some from last week, and we'll hopefully have more as we go along.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's beautiful. Are you? Oh, that is beautiful. Are you comfortable sharing?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
All right. So you are enough. You are mighty. You can do anything you put your mind to. Own your place in the room.
Oh, that is beautiful. Um, please
There you go.
put this into the box.
There we
Yes,
go.
beautiful. Thank you. I will share mine. I will share this in Bengali. I'll paraphrase the actual quote, but it goes something like "বিয়ে সব কিছু না, um, দক্ষতার মধ্যে পড়ে হলো টাকার শক্তি." So from that perspective, it's more like don't just teach women about marriage.
Yes.
Marriage isn't everything, but financial independence also makes you stronger.
Yes.
So from that perspective. Yes. And this is really great. We're very excited about this box. It really reminds us of our grandmothers who had so much wisdom to share, and not really in a lot of cultures they have that financial independence. From my background, I can say that one of the things that we held as an asset was gold. The more gold jewelry you have some form of protection.
Yes.
And sort of that is a woman's everything sometimes, because your partner, your husband can die, you can be left alone with children. What do you do then? So make sure when you get married you have a lot of gold. So that was a form of currency and protection.
Yes.
And we didn't understand about it. We used to think, oh yeah, I don't wear gold. Like even in my perspective, I just never want to wear gold. But then now that I'm older, now that I see that was their way of protecting us.
Yes.
Right. Our grandmothers protecting us. Like, do you have any experiences with like grandmother's wisdom in some way?
Well, I'm going to say I was pretty young when both of my grandmothers passed away. But my husband's grandmother, she was a very, very practical woman. You know, so she was not about the frills of life.
Okay.
It was just you get on with what needs to be done. You know what I mean? And I think that always serves me well. Like it's at points in time, yes, you can feel like you can't get things done, or you can feel like the world isn't quite moving in your direction. But at the end of the day, you got to shut it off and just sort of get on with it. And that's sort of how I approach life, just sort of getting on with it.
Yeah, that's actually so specific, but get on with it. It is what it is, and you just,
yes,
go on. So that's really beautiful. Thank you so much, Juliette, for giving us the time and sharing such amazing information, as well as your feelings about how we really need to hold the reins, of our own financial future. And even if it's tough, even if it's scary, we should always do it. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and this has been lovely.
Thank you.